you've worked for some major people, Nike, you were saying Vogue. What do you wish you had avoided?
It's hard because there's no like right or wrong way to get into a role in my position.
It's just potentially a factor of being really proactive and actually just meeting loads of people
100%.
because that will come back.
But yeah, obviously you've got to put the time in. There's obviously so much research you can do online, like the producers are obviously the top, then you get the directors.
We've recently just gone through a whole repositioning stuff. As starting out as a solo shooter, I wasn't super clear on what those roles were and the importances of it. Max, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, you're a good friend of mine, and I always tell you how much your work always inspires me and us to do better stuff. The projects you work on are so cool, and it's so inspiring to see that come off, and then obviously what we're trying to replicate within our production company. So how does someone starting out with big ambitions, how do they get to where you are?
Yeah, it's definitely a time thing for myself, and it's been, I started filming snowboarding and skateboarding, I guess similar route to yourself, and then from there it's for me it's been like a lot of word of mouth and like going through different people and production companies, and just time working up, getting bigger jobs from proving my worth, and just that slow build as over like 8 years now has got me to where I'm at.
I think that kind of slow growth is always a good thing, but it can be sped up by like how proactive you are, I guess.
100%. Yeah, I think I was like quite young starting, so I was like, what's going on? What do I need to do?
Well, when we met, obviously I was still skiing.
Yeah.
And you were always like the kid with the camera.
Exactly, that was me for a long time. I still am. But it's like just getting that experience has helped more recently, make that growth quicker.
Yeah, nice. And with that kind of like experience, like how would you even get started like on that? Like, you work under like a lot of production companies as well as obviously doing some stuff freelance yourself, but like where do you even begin that journey?
Yeah, I guess for myself it was just making little edits, skiing and snowboard edits. That's how it began. So I was doing like a bit of everything really, and then just doing like some freebies with people, making my own little videos, sharing it with people, trying to just get on. I did a little bit of assisting, but not a huge amount, just like smaller shoots myself, like events. And then from there, just like meeting new people, getting recommended to production companies or for other shoots, or sometimes working straight with some clients that I just, again, through word of mouth. I love this saying. It's like something like the amount of business you make is based on the amount of hands that you shake or something. But that idea that behind just the more people you meet, naturally, that word of mouth grows. And I think that's the same for so many filmmakers. And I think for some filmmakers that don't manage to make it work, it's just potentially a factor of being really proactive and actually just meeting loads of people, because that will come back. And I think that's how we're able to sustain a lot of business ourselves, is because you did work for a client 3-4 years ago, but then they've just come back round full circle. 100%. So we haven't really missed them a huge amount in that way. So let's say I'm starting out, I'm ambitious, I want to work on these major productions. What advice would you have? Like, do you connect with these agencies? Like, because it's all very well and good knowing who these brands and agencies and production companies are, but if they don't know who you are, then it's pointless. So it's all about them knowing you. So how would you go around that? What advice would you give someone? No, definitely, like just meeting up for like, even just they'd be your colleagues really, like other people that you look up to or people that you might want to work with, just like meet up with them for coffees or beers or whatever, have chats. So I've done that with quite a few people, and even directors of people that I'd like to work for, and production companies as well. So 100% just like meeting people, having chats, making that relationship really.
Just cold emails as well,
and
just like sending your work.
For myself, like cold emails don't usually come to fruition, but it's more my email will be like, hey, I like your work, I'd like to meet up for a coffee or beer. That's like how nice. I usually try and just meet someone, not necessarily like, oh, please give me some work, I want to work with you, just like build that relationship so that you can you see if you get along and you can work together in the future maybe. I think that's nice. We often obviously get messages, as you can imagine, like people wanting to kind of come and work and things like that, and or sharing their work. And
I always think the ones that work out really well are the people who want to provide the most value at the start as well, who like either want to meet up for a coffee or maybe want to like, you know, if they're starting out particularly and they don't have that portfolio where their track record is clear that they're good at what they do, then actually being able to be like, you know, I'm happy to come and shadow, or I'll produce a behind the scenes video for you, and then it builds that
That's
much better relationship. It's the same with like obviously the guys that we work with. So we spoke beforehand actually as well, and like, you know, agencies versus production companies versus kind of freelance. Like, what are like the key differences to you? Because I know you don't do a lot of agency work, but more production company. Kind of what separates that, or reasons why?
I guess just myself being a freelance director of photography, I'm usually generally working for a production company or with a director, and it's always, you know, generally through a production company. Sometimes I still do, you know, myself smaller shoots straight with clients or something. But yeah, usually if it's an agency job, I'm usually dealing with a production company who are working with the agency. Cool. So that's sort of my link up. I'm, I guess, down the chain basically in that sense.
But I think it's a nice place to be as well.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about the headache that I think you can get with agencies and dealing straight with clients. But
yeah, I always think it's a
pros
nice,
and cons.
Exactly. Yeah, pros and cons definitely. You know, and like we've spoken about this like over dinner and things before, where, you know, we've kind of taken slightly different routes in the same industry, and I often say, you know, like we're inspired by like the work that you do, and you get to travel on these amazing projects, and that's obviously like the fun side, and because you turn up as the DP and then, you know, get the job done and then on to the next one. Whereas for us, you know, we have this long process of like, you know, sales and dealing with clients and stuff. I think for me, the payoff is very much at the end and building out a team and those things. And there's no, you know, obviously right or wrong at all. But I think understanding that difference between working for an agency, then working for a production company, and actually maybe if you're starting out, just spreading your eggs, you know, in all of those baskets. So you obviously work with some like really expensive, very high-end cameras. And I think a fear that I've had is, and I know that filmmakers get this all the time, is obviously like, oh, you know, want the best camera gear because people hire the best camera gear and stuff. Like, number one, how relevant is camera gear to being a DP? And how, I guess the follow-up question for that is, how do you even get experience with these big cameras? If you've never used a Red before, like, and you don't have 50 to 100 grand to spend on one, where are you starting? So
So just to like get practice, I'd say go to like a rental house. They're like totally happy to just turn up, test as many cameras, many lenses as you want for free, basically. So that's like, I'd say the best way if you want to like, I'd love to like use a Red or an Arri or these lenses that really cool, I'd like to see what they look like. Just go to a rental house. I guess they're in and all around. But that would be 100% to do that.
That's good advice. In my head now, I'm like, I've bought so many cameras that we've then had to sell at a much, you know, at a loss. Because we bought them and we didn't test them and then we hated them. So.
But obviously you've got to put the time in, and there's obviously so much research you can do online, but definitely getting your hands on, I'd say, a rent house for those bigger cameras is good to like practice. What was the first question again?
Oh, the follow up from that was, well, the first question is the importance of like the camera gear in your role anyway. Like, you obviously have some of your own cameras, but like, do you hire them in? Like, how important is that?
I'd say more recently it's not that important because you can get amazing quality cameras for not like huge amounts of money. It's good to like, as we were saying, like test the camera. So if someone's like, oh, I want to bring in this job, we're using this camera. Oh, I've already used it. Great. I've got experience with it. So that side of it is like helpful. But definitely not as important these days as it used to be maybe 5-10 years ago about having, even owning equipment. But just the cheap, you can make great stuff with cheaper cameras. So it's not a huge worry.
I think as you grow more as well, I don't know if you would agree with this, you realize that it's not so much about the cameras as it's what you do with it. But then I think your track record and your portfolio then speaks for itself, you know? So, what you have the advantage of that someone starting out doesn't is you have this track record that proves to a production company that you can get the job done and you're less risk to them basically. And I guess it's building that out over time, right?
No, it's definitely not. It's not about the gear. It's about what you can do in front of the lens as well as knowing the camera and what its capabilities are, but what you can put in front of the lens is, I'd say, more important. Like recently I just did like a small shoot on my FS7. And someone was like, oh, was this shot on an Arri Alexa? I was like, no, I've just shot on my FS7, graded it nicely. So it's not all about the gear. It's more about knowing what to put in front of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd say.
And if you're, a one-man band as well, it's like things like lighting.
Yeah.
And, I know these guys in my team are investing a lot of time and resources into understanding lighting and also making do with what you can as well. We said even with like the setup today and stuff, the guys are out on a shoot, so they've got loads of the gear.
Yeah.
So it's like you just have to kind of go with it, and there's always those things.
That's definitely like half of, for myself being DP, is like problem solving. You're like, oh, we need to do this. What have we got? Oh, we've only got this. Can we make it work? Can you put it up there? Can we rig it in this place? So a lot of like on set, I'd say, is like problem solving for lighting, really.
Yeah, we say that actually. Me and Josh all the time, and the guys as well. Like if you're a camera op, you're in problem solving. Like if you're not good at problem solving, then that's it might not work out. Fine. So given what you know now on your journey to get to where you are, and you've worked for some major people, Nike, you were saying Vogue, like GQ, and major publications. What would you do differently, or what do you wish you had avoided? Because you do things when you start out that you think are right, and then actually with experience turns out that they're wrong, or there's better ways to do it. Is there anything that sticks out that would have made your growing process just so much better and quicker?
I think it's hard because there's no like right or wrong way to get into a role in my position. There's definitely like two different sort of major ways that most people do it, and one's going through like assisting. So you could do like camera trainee, loader, first AC, or go into lighting, which I think, looking back, I think I'd love to have done that, gone as like Spark and maybe tried to do a few gaffer jobs, because learning lighting as a DP is like, I'd say, more important than any camera side of things. But the route I've done, I think it's more, I think maybe just I was quite young, so I was just like, oh, what do I do? Just waiting for things to happen. Whereas if I was going to do it, just shooting my own things now, being older, I'd be more proactive and doing lots more basically.
And understand that you have the power, you're the orchestrator of your own future. And I think that's the thing. I think about this as well, like it used to just be like, oh, the work will find itself, it will come back round. And now it's like, obviously different, and we've scaled up, but it's actually just like, no, like if you want to grow, you've just got to pull in 110% effort all the time. And that's not always sustainable. And you kind of, you have growth periods where you're in a growth mode, and then you go back to kind of being comfortable for a bit. And then ultimately something comes around, bites you in the arse, and then you're like, I'm back into growth mode, and that thing. That's really interesting. So talk me through what is like, a big production. So talk me through, biggest production, how many people are involved, and also what are those different roles? Because you just mentioned there, like, a Spark, a gaffer, an assist, and all these things. And actually, this is something that I dive straight into the production company, the business side. Obviously, videographer first myself, but I knew I always wanted to have a production company. And actually, I think as a result, I missed out on learning from people. And if I could go back in time, that's actually something I would do. I could do it now, but like I would wish I just did more shadowing. I think I wish I learned more because I kind of dived in a bit quick with to a point where like now I have to find a production company that we're probably friends with for me to shadow, because obviously we would be in competition potentially to some point, not with everyone, but whatever.
You can definitely do that. I've been on productions where two production companies are like co-producing it, I guess.
Oh wow.
Cool. So
oh, that is cool.
Definitely. I think you can do. I know some guys that that to be fair, one of the biggest productions I was on, which I was actually just like DITing for this production company that were co-producing.
And for people who don't know what that is, DITing?
Digital imaging technician. You're basically managing all the media that's coming out of the cameras, putting onto drives essentially. Unlike bigger, this is my knowledge, I don't know everything about bigger productions because I haven't been on a huge amount, but they can grade it straight away, send it to like playback people who can show, previews of whatever.
So you're kind of like running around the data and backing it up and all that stuff.
But cool. Essentially, just copying and pasting.
Cool. Copy and pasting.
But making a log, there's more to it. But that was probably one of the biggest. But there's maybe like 50 or so crew in total. But just going back quickly, because my route's been more like shooting myself, I think that's what's really good experience. If you went on to a big production and you could totally do that as a camera trainee, you can see all the different roles, and then from there maybe be like, oh, actually like what this guy's doing, what are you doing, have a chat. So that's like why that route is maybe better for some people. But yeah, I guess quickly going through some of the roles, like the producers are obviously the top, then you get the directors who obviously usually come up with the ideas and are directing everything.
My understanding is, you know, the producers are the ones that kind of like organize everything and kind of bring the heads of departments together, and then the heads of departments.
Okay.
The heads of departments are like, you know, your directors who then bring the camera team in and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you got the producers there who are essentially sometimes freelance or sometimes working for the production company, and they'll be working with the agency or I guess direct client depending on their setup. Yes, and there's myself, who's director of photography, who's managing, I guess, like lighting team and camera team. Essentially, that's it really. Going through camera team, you have your first AC, who's basically managing the camera, setting it up for pulling focus. And you have your second AC or clapper loader, who is the person that does the famous clapping, but also is there to help assist the first AC. You know, batteries, changing lenses. And then camera trainee is also like just another helping hand on camera team, basically.
Yeah, sure.
That's generally your camera team. Lighting, you have your gaffer, who's like your main head of department for lighting, who, if you have loads of people, you have a best boy, who's like his first port of call.
A best boy?
Yeah, or like sparks, who are basically like people that will set up lights and get them ready. And then you have grip team, who they'll basically manage anything that, like, when the camera needs to move on a dolly or a crane, they'll be the person that puts the camera on there safely, basically, or in a car, mounting onto a car, those kind of things. And then I guess like on different shoots you have, you know, hair and makeup and all that side of things. Art directors who are styling things. Obviously your sound team. But yeah, that's the main people I'm talking to are the camera, lighting team, and obviously the director on shoots to make sure that we're getting what we need to get.
It all basically leads up into, you know, the client, and
then
essentially
sure
that vision travels down. We've recently just gone through a whole repositioning stuff, actually, where we're situated as a production company, and a part of that was analysing what production companies, some that you work with and others, you know, abroad in different countries, and just see what they're doing and see how they've like kind of achieved those things. And that was really interesting for us because, as you know, starting out as a solo shooter and doing a bit of everything, I wasn't super clear on what those roles were and the importances of it. And actually it's made us look at our future organizational chart and who we employ next change from being creative to more producer roles. We've actually just hired a salesperson who will then start to help with like tenders and bringing those projects on and stuff. But it really actually changed our whole business plan, from just hiring creative people, bringing the work, get the creatives to do it, to actually building out this bigger team that goes into a larger production. I think that's something that kind of amazes me, and it'd be great if you give some insight on this. Is, you know, sometimes you're talking about these huge names that you worked for, and then, you know, in my head I'm thinking, oh, that must be a set of like 20, 30 plus people, and then you're like, oh no, it's literally just me and a couple of other people. And that is, I think that kind of inspires me, but also I'm sure gives other people who are aspiring filmmakers to have like even more kind of ambition, because it's like, actually, you know, we're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies that are doing major shoots just with yourself plus just a couple of other people. Recently, for example, as I did a little shoot for McDonald's, and it was more on like the PR side, but it was for their new like they've got like peel cup things, and it was basically just a PR stunt, but they just needed me to come down and just made a minute, which ended up going on Instagram, stuff like that. But then I think like these days clients are using their budget like in like a wider space, so like they know that they need to like produce loads more content because people are scrolling. So they'll have like maybe their bigger advert, which could go on TV, for example, but then they'll like maybe have a few different other productions that can produce like different, you know, stuff for TikTok or whatever, or stuff for Instagram or that user-generated style.
Even that, you know, like paying money to get influencers to do stuff for them. So they're like spreading their marketing budgets wider. So there's loads of different production companies for maybe one campaign. So I think that's where, like you say, I just turned up myself basically and did that little shoot for McDonald's.
And you know, we spoke about this about the Nike or Nike for the US audience. about that kind of setup actually, and I was surprised to I thought they would just work with one, because that's how it used to work, right? A big corporate client would work with like one agency and the agency would work with one production company, and that's how it was. But you're saying like, no, each team within, you know, the Nike setup would have their own agencies and their own production companies, or multiple within that. And I thought that was really interesting. So there is like so much, like, you know, we talk about the piece of the pie. There's enough of the cake for everyone. And I think that's getting better with that way as well. And we look at it as like a above the line and below the line kind of thing. So, you know, above the line are these, you know, like big high budget commercials, the TV commercials, you know, the ones that are costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then there's, you know, there's various tiers beneath that of, like you say, you know, the social content side of things, the internal side of things, and external. And I think it's great because it gives so many people a good opportunity to work for major brands. Feature that in your portfolio, generate more of that income, and, you know, following your journey as well, you know, like from that, building out that portfolio, keeping it rolling, and that word of mouth obviously spreads a lot. In your opinion, what qualities do you think someone needs to have to be, you know, working on these major productions? You know, as a director of photography, or, you know, what kind of qualities are good to have?
I'd say just don't be a diva. That's the main thing that anyone's like, if you're hard to work with, or that throw up problems at people, they're just not gonna think about you really, and be like, that was painful or whatever. But if you're someone that just says yes to everything and tries to find a solution rather than stating problems all the time, then that's I think that's like the major thing. Just trying to make things work, saying yes, like not having a problem, not being a diva. Those are
I think that's really fair. I didn't think you were going to say that, but now I think about how, you know, conversations I've had with other people as well, other friends, and they you know, they're often going on to shoots where like they're meant to be filming, and the next thing they're setting up lighting rigs because they you know, the team aren't there, and they don't know what they're doing, and they just have to say to someone, how do I do this quickly? And but they're willing just to hey, willing. I'm outside of my comfort zone, but let's just like you know, take that. 100%. That's really true. And I think sometimes people can get a bit focused on that, like, oh well, they said, you know, it's a 7-hour day and all this stuff. You know, it's like no shoot I've ever been on has ever been a 7-hour day. You know, they're always kind of long and stuff. But I think being as like malleable, I think maybe is the word, but like being flexible and kind of working within that. My understanding as well, you know, a lot of like directors of photography as well, like yourself, you know, we also have those decisions, and like you know, we might say to you, Max, if you're coming on one of our productions, and we've had the pleasure of working with each other before, and hopefully we do that more, but then I might say, Max, do you know any good lighting people? Can we bring them in for this? Or do you know someone? And you know, that's where that word of mouth and that relationship comes, and then I can say, you know, this is the budget, and you'll be like, oh, I know a guy that would be good for that, or whatever it is. So building up that good rapport is obviously a good thing to do. As a production company, what I want to know is, how do I land those big clients? You know, how do I become the production company that these big clients come to? Do you have an insight to how that process works? Like, how can we get there kind of thing?
Unfortunately, from my position, I don't have that insight. But from what I know from other production companies is like getting those big jobs usually comes through agencies, and that creative agencies are looking to production companies to do their work for them. So
interesting.
Essentially that's where I'd be looking at those agencies, because those are the clients go to the agencies with their big budgets, and the agencies are the ones that distribute that. That would be my, but again, like I don't know exactly. So
no, that's fine.
That would be my
I'm sure
guess.
there's multiple routes to market
100%.
as well.
Yeah,
definitely. But that is interesting. That makes a lot of sense as well. You know, like I think sometimes we can think like because we deal with we work with a few agencies, but mostly speaking, we don't deal direct with the client. And actually, again, that can be not a red herring, because that's where we are at the moment. But when we're talking about business growth and we're looking towards these, you know, big productions and stuff, and as we grow on our journey, it's important to know actually how that sales journey might change as well, and actually, you know, who you need to build relationships with, and that makes a lot of sense. I know that some production companies still go to tender for things. So for those who don't know, a tender is basically the client themselves. So let's say Adidas, they will put out a public request a pitch. So
Yeah.
they'll ask production companies to pitch for this idea. And then you often have to put together a pitch deck with your approach and your pricing and all of this. It's often a very long process, but the budgets are often super high. We actually work with an agency who pitches for tenders, and then we team up with them. They're an education company, so we team up with them on that. But they have a whole team dedicated to just tenders, but they only need to get 1 or 2 a year, and it pays everyone's salaries. So, but it's a risk, you know. You can either choose to sit there and do tenders and you might not get anything, or you hire a team in, which is going to cost you, and it's tricky. But I think as you've talked about your growth and your journey, it very much seems that the common theme is, you know, just being proactive, being good to work with, and working with lots of people, gaining as much experience as you can, building out your track record so people know that you're good. They don't need to think, oh, will they do a good job or not? And then that growth, generally, the work then tends to kind of find itself.
So just on the tenders, like I know lots of directors who pitch on jobs, either it's to a production company or maybe sometimes straight to like clients or something, and a lot of them don't happen. So it's like if you're someone that is gonna, you know, pitch on jobs, don't get hardened when they say no, because it's like 10% of your
and always ask for
will happen.
And
for feedback.
Sure. And ask for feedback. I mean, sales as a whole actually.
Exactly.
Is like it's a numbers game, but also it's always a numbers in the negative game. So you're no after no after no. But like I was saying about these guys, you know, you get a yes, and then you've got your 6-figure contract, and you're set. There you go. It's all fun. So what I'd love to know, to kind of like finish this off, is has there been a moment where you've been on set and something major has gone really wrong, like really horrendous? And what I want to know is, how did it feel at the time? Well, what was it? How did you feel at the time? And how did you overcome that?
I don't actually have like a terrible story. I have like a few like little problems which have happened where, like, from one of my own like small shoots, I basically just didn't back up the footage. And I was like, oh, here, I looked into the folder, wasn't there. I was like, oh my God.
I love how you say that. That's like a small problem.
But that was like, I guess luckily it was like a really small shoot, and it was 1 day out of like 5. So luckily it wasn't a big problem. But that was essentially just a big apology. I'll reshoot it kind of thing. And luckily it worked out, and I kept working with that client again for quite a few years. But I've had like on set, like one light we'd like rigged up really high, and it ended up melting like the air conditioning unit, and it's like fell down. Luckily no one was injured, but that was like one of those that could have gone really bad. I've had a few like lights, like stands fall and like been close, and you're like, oh God. But luckily, as far as I can remember, unless I've just like hidden it in the back of my head because it was terrible, I can't think of anything that went terribly wrong on shoots.
Good.
So maybe a bit of luck, maybe being prepared, as prepared as you can.
Yeah, I think again it comes with experience, right? Like, you know, you do one of those things once, and then hopefully, you know, you learn from that.
I back up footage 3 times now, even if it's not like my problem. I'm like, 3 different drives.
Just to make sure that is secure. Man, that makes total sense. I mean, I know you know this well enough, but my worst thing was smashing up the camera. So we flew out to Austria. We're working for a company called Sixt Rental Car, so they're a huge company. I have a really good relationship with them, and I'm one of a few people in the world that can go over the ski jump, about 60 foot in length with a full production camera. And that was my speciality. I loved it. I've flown out for like monster shoots and stuff, and that's been really cool. And but I got it wrong, and I crashed, and in front of everyone I smashed up the camera gear, which you think, okay, obviously that's bad, but what made that worse was that's day 2 of a 6-day shoot, and we were so close to not bring in a B cam, because we were like, we're just not going to need it. We're just going to do everything on our A cam, make it all look amazing. And I'm so glad that we brought that B cam, because we ended up shooting the whole entire project on our B cam because the A cam was smashed to bits. It was absolutely crazy. But again, problem solving, and again, a bit of luck. The luck was that we had that there, had our B cam, but then experience also told me that like, what's the harm in taking it? It doesn't take up that much room just to do those things. You really build it out as time goes on.
I actually just remembered another one, which was quite recently. We went to Puerto Rico and luggage didn't turn up. We were doing like a 3-day shoot and it just wasn't going to turn up. But like this is again like part of being that person. We were shooting with a local guy who was going to be like our surfboard cam guy. He was like, oh, I've got loads of equipment, you can use this. And luckily, because he was nice and just lent us his stuff, we made the shoot work. But looking back, without that person, essentially, we've been like a bit screwed over.
You're shooting it on your iPhone?
Probably, yeah. So like that's where like just being that nice guy saying yes, he just saved our bacon.
Yeah. Nice, mate. That's really good. Well, Max, thank you so much for taking the time out today. Yeah, honestly, your work is amazing. Where can these guys take a look at some of your work?
On my website, maxpresky.com, or Instagram, @maxpresky.
Sweet.
That's
yeah,
me,
awesome. Yeah, definitely take a look. Some of your work is amazing. It really inspires us to produce better content. And thanks for sharing that insight with us, because it's certainly a route that I know that a lot of ambitious filmmakers will want to go down, and maybe they feel a little bit either discouraged or unsure of those next steps. So yeah, thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice. All good.